I always said that I wasn't like a prognosticator or someone that could predict the future of the market. I just liked ball pythons. And so at the time, there was really only 3 people in the country, Kevin McCurley from Nerd, Tracy Barker from BPI, and me, that were buying every ball python that was coming out of Africa. That wasn't a pied or an albino, because pieds and albinos were still being pretty heavily sought after, although they weren't genetically proven, or the pieds weren't genetically proven at the time. And so, again, I was on the front edge of the ball python thing when people all of a sudden wanted to produce them. And really what happened was Peter Call proved out the pieds. And when he proved out the pieds, he offered them, much like you saw with the albino Burmese at $1,600, he offered pieds for $25,000. Now you got to remember, that's unheard of money back then. I mean, for him to just like randomly pull a number out of his hat, like they're going to be $25,000. But the thing was, everyone wanted them because everyone thought it was the next big investment, right? And so that kind of started the whole ball python thing, because if people were going to buy albinos for $15,000, pieds for $25,000, now they want to buy every other ball python too. And I already had a big group of really cool ball pythons, and I'd already made a tremendous amount of connections over in Africa. I wasn't just dealing with Noah. Now I was dealing with Abomey Benin. I was dealing with Contenu and Lomé, and so now I was buying all kinds of things. As a matter of fact, Kevin McCurley used to always say that, from Nerd used to say that there were entire villages that were running around with BHB shirts on, because I used to fund so many villages in West Africa. And then of course, from there, another break, and I keep talking about these breaks that kind of can really grow your business. And the next break was the pinstripe ball python. And what ultimately was, I had a guy that was over there that I used to pay to go over there and scout for me. He was an American, and basically what I do is I pay him to go over there, and then I give him a small, like a 10% finder's fee. So if I bought a snake for $1,000, he got a $100 bonus. That's how it worked. And sure enough, I get a call, and there's a guy named Patrice in Abomey, Benin, and he has this interesting reduced pattern ball python. Of course, pre-internet, so you can't get pictures. That's the reason I had this kid over there, is so that he could look at stuff. And I'd never forget, he wanted $26,000 for the snake. And that was a lot of money for a snake that I didn't see, didn't know anything about. And so I sent my guy over there with a basket of Siefa, and I think it's literally like a garbage bag full of money, And he went over there and met with them, called me up and said, man, this thing is awesome. I go, do you think we should buy it? And he said, I don't know, Brian, I don't know, it's a lot of money. And I said, if it was your money, would you buy it? And he said, yes. And I said, then buy it. And ultimately, that was the pinstripe ball python. And it was the very first pinstripe ball python. It was a male. You got to remember, really there wasn't a lot of codominant things. I think at that point maybe pastels had been produced. That was the only thing. Everything else was recessive. I would never think that pinstripe ball pythons would be codominant or incomplete dominant. So I raised that male up. As a matter of fact, at one point, I think we're starting to see a theme here. At one point, I was cleaning when he was about 1.5 years old. I was, I used to do I didn't even have employees back then, so I did all the cleaning and feeding. And I was cleaning at a building I had, and get a knock on the door. It's like 1 in the morning, and a friend of mine stopped by. And so I get talking to my friend, walk around the corner, I realized that I left the pinstripe ball python cage open, and he was gone. And it took me about a half hour. We did find him, so it all worked out well. But the point is that we bred that animal that year, and out popped. I'll never forget, there was a clutch of 4 eggs, and the 4th egg that I cut was a pinstripe ball python. And I assumed that they were just going to be had for pins, like it would be a recessive mutation. So I wasn't expecting to see a pinstripe. I don't even know why I cut the clutch a couple days early, maybe just excited or something. But again, that was another life-changing event. And then, later on down the road with ball pythons in particular, we had obviously the sunsets, and then ultimately the scaleless ball python as well that we kind of had. And all those things were really building blocks on growing BHB to where it was in my career. But that being said, I want to switch gears a second. Around the time that I was doing the sunsets and scaleless heads, my kind of interest in life changed a little bit, right? I really was less interested in making investment quality animals and selling high-end animals, and more interested in the entertainment / educational side of the house, And over the last couple of years, anyone that follows me realizes that we did a big downsize at one point. my focus now is, of course, daily vlogging, you know, getting people excited about animals. I mean, someone asked me earlier today about the South African market and said, you know, well, you know, we've seen some price corrections in ball pythons and leopard geckos, and how do we not have that happen is severe. And what you got to remember is it's all a supply and demand thing, right? You know, so as more people are breeding, your supply is increasing, and you've got to find more eyeballs to get on those animals to hopefully get more people interested in the hobby. And that was kind of my mission statement over the last few years, not necessarily from the business side, like I want people to buy more snakes. I just wanted more people to be interested in snakes, right? And I think one of the things that the reptile hobby does, oftentimes, at least in America, I don't know if it's so much here in South Africa. And by the way, I'm sure there's some drama here at some point, but I am impressed with how close of a tight niche it seems to be here in South Africa. You know, it seems like everyone knows each other, they get along. I'm sure there's some outcasts, I get it. In America, it's not so much that way. You know, it's very vitriolic, it's very catty, there's little groups that hate each other, and it's a different type of situation. But that being said, one of the things that we in America do, and you guys may make the same mistake, is that we preach to the converted, right? So like we try to get, like, you're into animals. I don't need to get you into animals. I don't need to convince you that an animal is awesome, right? You already know it. So what I do in my life is I try to find people that don't think animals or reptiles or snakes are awesome. And I want to get them. I've met a bunch of people today that told me that story. I don't know if anyone was around when this happened. A bunch of people told me a story how they didn't like snakes at all. And then they came across my vlog, and now they're at this reptile show. That's what I want to do, right? That's my mission statement. That's what gets me up in the morning, and that's what gets me excited about things. And that doesn't mean that I don't love the animals, because I do. I love the animals. I love being around the animals. I can't imagine life not being around animals. I can't imagine life not breeding animals, because I love hatching babies. I love getting eggs. But I no longer look at that as my main business. Right, you know, BHB, the reptile side, is just a very small portion of what I'm trying to do, and ultimately, what I try to do is again just get people excited. You know, just get people interested in reptiles, get people to open their eyes, and that's how the South African market can continue to grow as well. Bringing new people in. If you have a very inclusive amount of people, your supply is going to overtake that demand. You know, really quickly. And so that's what you guys have to do, and I know you have some challenges with governmental things and other things like that, but these are all things that you know, you'll have to, as a community, are going to have to continue to figure out how to do, because if you can grow those numbers, like I'll give you an example. A couple years ago there was a survey that said that there was about 2.5 million people in America that kept reptiles, about 2.5 million. In the last 2 years, that has jumped to over 4 million. Okay, so you can see, like, you know, as those numbers increase, and we have 4 million people that at least casually keep reptiles, and that's 4 million is going to turn to 6 million, it's going to turn to 8 million, because all those people that used to not keep them are going to expose their friends to them, their friends are going to like them, their friends and their friends, and it's going to continue to grow, right? And I think that's ultimately what, you know, as a community in South Africa needs to continue to do too, is how do you bring more people into the show? How do you bring more people into your community? And I don't know the complete answers of your society here, but those are the things that drive me every day to try to expand the market in America. And even though I may not be benefiting from that market growth because I'm not selling as much, it's still a good thing for the hobby, you know. So again, you know, and kind of wrapping this up before I start taking questions, you know, I've been fortunate to travel the world and do amazing things, and it's all because of snakes. It's all because that kid at 15 years old, you know, went to work at a pet shop and ultimately followed his dreams and did crazy things that should, like, I don't know what to think about my parents, you know, allowing me to do the things that I did as far as investments, and but it's, you know, snakes have been great to me, reptiles have been great to me, animals have been great to me, and I know the future is going to be really bright, and I know that I can't wait to see what's next. I mean, obviously, the big things for me right now are to continue to daily vlog, continue to reach more people. I've got a whole bunch of initiatives there. You know, obviously, I'm really getting into, and this is always weird when I say this, but I'm really getting into the naturalistic setups. You know, and this comes from a guy that kept things in shoebox racks for 28 years. You know, the naturalistic thing is really driving me right now. I think it's I think that's the next wave in reptiles, quite frankly, at least in America. And I think really around the world, to be totally honest with you, is the ability for people to keep these great micro environments. And we want to kind of be one of the people that lead the way in that, you know, allowing people to have the ability to buy products that can make incredible naturalistic displays. And so, you know, I've had several conversations today with people, much like, you know, the marine fish keepers that will, you know, spend insane amount of money on a fish tank, you know, because they just want this cool micro habitat. I think that's what the next step in reptile keeping is too, is that people can keep these animals in these awesome, so it's not just about the animal, but it's about the environment too. And so there's lots of incredibly exciting things on the horizon. And I think that, you know, for anyone here that's aspiring to be a breeder, maybe you already are a breeder, maybe you're not, you know, I think, again, it's just a matter of, you know, sticking with things that you love. Don't do it for the money, you know. We were talking earlier about how, you know, so many animals that were available 5 years, 7 years, 8 years ago are just kind of gone, you know. And it's because people were chasing things, right? You know, a guy that loves corn snakes all of a sudden decides, well, there's money in ball pythons, so I'm going to stop breeding corn snakes to breed ball pythons. That's like the worst decision you can make, you know what I mean? Like, you know, work with the stuff that you love and keep working with the stuff that you love, because, you know, that's where you're going to find the most happiness. And if you chase the money, it's usually the wrong thing. Much like I told you about the projects that kind of, you know, propelled me to where I was. I didn't chase any of them. They came to me, right? I wasn't, you know, usually, I'll give you a little bit of advice on the investment side of things. You usually don't want to be the third guy in, or the third tier in, right? You want to be the first tier. You may want to be the second tier. The third tier, you're going to get hurt, right? Because the third tier is when it goes from $1,000 to $100. You know, the first tier it's $5,000, the second tier it's $2,000, but you're still selling stuff for $1,000 to that third tier people. The third tier is the ones that get crushed, you know, and I know a lot of people don't like me to talk about that stuff because like, oh wait, I'm the third tier, I don't want to get hurt. But the truth is that that's just the experience I've had. And so don't chase things, you know, that's the biggest thing, you know, let things come to you, work with the things that you really love, and you'll be surprised. You know, again, we talk about corn snakes and leopard geckos being a thing for a while. Well, that cycles back. It will cycle back, you know, right about the time when everyone decides, I can't sell leopard geckos anymore. As a matter of fact, you told me, leopard gecko market's soft, right? Bam, he sold how many leopard geckos? 50?
50.
Yes, I mean, think about that. Today, you know, just today. I mean, that's what happens in America as well. As people like 2 years ago, the leopard gecko market was pretty soft. So almost everyone stopped breeding them. Because like, oh, I can't sell the damn things. They're not worth anything anymore. But now 2 years later, there's a shortage of them. And guys like me that stuck with it are reaping the benefit, you know. So that's the advice, you know. Don't give up on something just because you think it's not going to work for you. Because if you're doing it just for the money, it's never going to work out, you know. And don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with making money, you know, right? As long as the money isn't your motivation. You know, I mean, the experience, the opportunity. I always talk about life experiences. You know, I would rather come to South Africa than buy a new car, you know, or something like that. I mean, this is the type of life experience. So when you're breeding reptiles or working with reptiles for a living, you know, that's an awesome experience. You know, I mean, you can